A messy room rarely begins with a messy room. It begins with one small decision. I'll deal with it later. One shirt gets dropped on the chair, one plate stays in the sink, one thing gets left on the table because putting it back feels unnecessary. Nothing seems wrong in that moment. But then another thing gets added, and another, until the room slowly becomes a physical record of everything you've been postponing. And that's where something interesting happens. The mess around you can start influencing the way you feel inside. What looks like a simple problem of cleanliness can actually become a problem of attention, stress, control, and even identity. This is why people who keep their homes clean every day are psychologically interesting. They aren't necessarily cleaner because they have more discipline, more free time, or some unusual love for household chores. In many cases, they've simply developed a completely different relationship with small amounts of disorder. They don't wait for the mess to become overwhelming before dealing with it. They interrupt it while it's still small. And that tiny difference changes everything. Your brain doesn't treat your surroundings as meaningless background. It constantly takes in information from the environment around you. A pile of clothes, an unfinished stack of papers, dishes waiting in the sink, objects that don't belong where they are, each one represents something unresolved. You may not consciously think about every single item, but your brain still has to process the visual information. When enough of these signals accumulate, the environment becomes mentally noisy. That's one reason you can sit in a messy room without doing anything and still feel strangely tired. You haven't physically worked, but your brain hasn't completely switched off either. Part of your attention is being pulled toward everything that remains unfinished. The mess becomes a collection of tiny reminders. This needs to be cleaned, that needs to be moved, I still haven't done this. Individually, those reminders are insignificant. Together, they can create a surprisingly heavy cognitive load. Now reverse the situation. The room is clean. The floor is clear. The bed is made. The dishes are gone. Your desk has only what you actually need. There are fewer visual signals competing for your attention. The environment stops asking you to solve problems. And that can make the space feel calmer without you even consciously knowing why. But the deeper psychology behind daily cleaning isn't really about cleanliness. It's about control. Most of life doesn't respond to your commands. You can't decide how other people behave. You can't control traffic, weather, unexpected expenses, workplace problems, or the decisions other people make. You can spend an entire day trying to keep everything under control and still discover that something completely outside your control has changed your plans. Your immediate environment is different. You can change it. A dirty counter can become clean in 2 minutes. A pile of clothes can disappear. A messy bed can be fixed before you've even fully woken up. A sink full of dishes can become empty. You make a decision, take an action, and get a visible result. That experience matters. Every time you change something in your environment through your own action, you're reinforcing a simple psychological message: my actions have an effect. And when life feels unpredictable, that feeling can be surprisingly powerful. You may not be able to control everything happening outside your home, but you can control what happens inside it. This is closely connected to the idea of an internal locus of control, the belief that your actions can meaningfully influence your circumstances. People with a stronger sense of personal control tend to approach problems differently. Instead of feeling completely powerless in front of every problem, they look for something they can actually do. Daily cleaning gives you one of the simplest versions of that experience. You see disorder. You respond to it. The disorder changes. And then there is another layer that matters even more: identity. Most people think habits are about discipline. They assume someone with a clean home must simply have stronger willpower. But willpower is unreliable. Some days you have plenty of it. Other days you don't want to do anything at all. Identity works differently. If you repeatedly describe yourself as a messy person, your behavior starts making that identity feel true. You leave things around because that's just how you are. You postpone cleaning because you've always postponed it. Eventually, the mess isn't just something in your environment. It becomes part of the story you tell yourself about yourself. But identity can work in the opposite direction too. The first time you put something away immediately, it means almost nothing. The 10th time, it becomes a pattern. After 100 repetitions, it starts becoming evidence. You're giving your brain proof that you're someone who takes care of their environment. You make your bed because you're someone who starts the day by completing small commitments. You wash the plate because you're someone who doesn't create unnecessary work for tomorrow. You put your clothes away because you're someone who keeps their surroundings under control. None of these actions are extraordinary. That's exactly why they're powerful. Small actions repeated consistently create a different self-image. Eventually, the person doesn't think, I need to force myself to clean. They simply clean. The decision disappears because the behavior has become normal. And this is where the difference between discipline and automation becomes important. Someone who cleans their entire house once every 2 weeks may actually be working much harder than someone who spends 10 minutes maintaining it every day. The first person repeatedly has to overcome a huge task. The second person prevents the huge task from ever appearing. That's the real advantage of daily maintenance. You don't wait for the problem to become painful. You deal with it while it's still easy. This is also why attaching cleaning to existing routines can make the habit almost effortless. You don't need to create an entirely new part of your day. Connect the behavior to something you already do. When the coffee is brewing, clear the counter. After dinner, wash the dishes. After brushing your teeth, wipe the bathroom sink. Before going to bed, put the things you've used during the day back where they belong. The existing routine becomes the trigger. And eventually, your brain stops treating the cleaning as a separate task. It becomes part of the routine itself. There's another reason this habit can feel surprisingly good. Cleaning gives you immediate feedback. Many important things in life don't work that way. You can work hard for months without seeing obvious results. You can exercise for weeks before noticing a major difference. You can work on a career for years before reaching the outcome you want. Cleaning is different. You wipe the surface and it's clean. You wash the dishes and the sink is empty. You make the bed and the room immediately looks different. Your brain gets to see the result of your effort almost instantly. That visible completion can create a small sense of satisfaction and momentum. One completed action makes another action easier to start, and that momentum can spill into the rest of your day. This is one reason starting your morning by restoring a little order can matter. You're not transforming your life before breakfast. You're simply giving yourself an early piece of evidence that you can decide something and follow through. But there is an important distinction here. A clean home doesn't mean a perfect home. You don't need empty shelves, perfectly folded towels, or a house that looks like nobody actually lives there. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is preventing disorder from becoming overwhelming. There's a massive difference between cleaning for 3 hours because everything has been ignored for 2 weeks and spending 10 minutes every day keeping things under control. The second approach requires much less effort because you're dealing with reality in small pieces. And that's probably the biggest lesson hidden inside this habit. People who keep their homes clean aren't necessarily doing more cleaning. They're often doing less cleaning more consistently. They don't allow small problems to become large problems. They don't constantly negotiate with themselves about when they'll finally deal with the mess. They simply handle things as they appear. And over time, that behavior starts affecting more than the room. Because your environment can become a reflection of the relationship you have with yourself. When you repeatedly take care of the place where you live, you're sending yourself a quiet message. My surroundings matter. My comfort matters. My peace matters. And I'm willing to do something small every day to protect it. That's a very different mindset from cleaning only when the situation becomes unbearable. So if you want to understand what daily cleaning is really doing for these people, don't look at the spotless kitchen or the perfectly made bed. Look at the psychology underneath it. They're reducing mental noise. They're creating a sense of control. They're reinforcing an identity. They're preventing small problems from becoming overwhelming. And they're repeatedly proving to themselves that they can take care of the things directly within their control. The clean room is simply the visible result. The real change is happening somewhere you can't see, inside the way they think. And perhaps that's why the most powerful part of cleaning your home isn't what happens to the room after you're finished. It's what happens to you while you keep doing it.